Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am Briar Harvey. This is the Neurodiversity Media Network, and you are here today for an adventure.
Mm.
We are riding the wheel of the year with the incredible Karina Blackheart. Today, us and a friend, we've tried so many things to get this
Where is
camera
it?
to,
This
yeah,
little.
all these orbs, like they
Mhm.
just showed up and they're not leaving. So I expect this session to be magical. Let's start by talking about what we're even calling this episode because it really begins here.
It really does. Like first I was like, well, just call it Candlemas. Then I said, okay, a lot of people call it in bulk. We'll call it in bulk. But personally, this is the feast of breed for me, Bridget. And so yesterday I just got like I had done all of this research on like what is Candlemas and what does that name mean and what does in bulk mean? And in bulk anyway, so we're calling it breed because that's what I call it, and that is the foundation of the work that I do at this time of year. So for me to call it by other names just felt inauthentic to me. Like I would be stuttering over using that other language. So in bulk translates roughly as when the sheep begin to nurse the baby sheep. Okay. So when the ewe's milk comes in, ewe milk, right?
Mhm.
In bulk, right? Um, where I live, we don't have sheep roaming in the fields. That's not a thing that you see where I live. So again, this riding the wheel of the year and wanting to make it personal, hyper local, right? It just doesn't, it's never made sense to me. In fact, years ago, I was leading a big public ritual uh, called the Feast of Breed. So this is a long standing pattern. And a local druid herbalist, that's all I'm going to say, approached me afterwards and said, well, in bulk means the time when the sheep's milk comes in. And I didn't hear any mention of that in your ritual tonight. I was like 27, 29, right? And I was like, am I should I have brought sheep in like to the ritual? Like I don't know what to do with that information, right? Um so it's never felt like for me where I live on this continent in New England like anything that I could identify with at all, right? Um your mileage may vary, right? That's fine. You call it what you want. Candlemas is the uh, Catholic overtaking of both breed. Okay, but there is a Saint Breed's Day. So I'll get to that. But Candlemas was the overtaking of Imbolc, right? The pagans, the unbaptized people are celebrating something around this time of year. At the midpoint between winter solstice and spring equinox. So this is a cross-quarter day that we're talking about. So they co-opted it and called it Candlemas. So whenever you see the word MAS at the ends of one of these Sabbath names, that indicates that it's a mass that the church held. and still holds, right? I call Lammas Lammas because Lunisad, I can't ever figure out how to spell it. It has a lot of
It's true.
extra H's in there.
It does.
So that's really the one that I use the MAS on, just because it's easier for me to say. Candlemas is the time that the church would bless all of the candles that the church was going to use in their services for the whole next year. And they would also bless candles that the parishioners brought to the church. Okay. There's a whole bunch of feast days right around February 1st is when we celebrate. So the 31st of January is the eve of Breed. Okay, so it's the night before the day proper, right? The Feast of Breed is on February 1st. Now, they co-opted Breed and made her a Catholic saint because she was too big to erase, right? Too big to erase. On the 2nd of February, that's Candlemas. On the 3rd of February is the Feast of Saint Blaise, Blaise. And this is the one that you and I were talking about, where they take those candles that they blessed the day before and they cross them like this, and they put them against the parishioner's neck, right, with a blessing for against diseases of the throat. So when you and I were talking about it earlier, Breed, I said, "Oh, I think maybe if we were subjected to that, because I was as a child, I went to Catholic school for a lot of my elementary school years, and I remembered that ceremony, and I thought, oh, is there some sort of throat chakra clearing I should do around?" Um,
Having been raised Catholic, I'm certainly going to be embracing it for myself this season. Yes.
uh-huh. So you're going to do a clearing of that this season.
Hmm.
Yeah. 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 And we can bless our own throats on that day, right? So if they co-opted, then we can co-opt it back. That's how I look at it.
Hmm. We're taking it back.
Yes, take it back. So bless your throats. Bless your voice. Um, and then later in the month in February, because we're talking about these days not as just the day, but the season, right? There's a whole bunch of other Catholic stuff happening, right? It's Ash Wednesday, which is the first day of Lent, which is it's and that happens to fall on St. Valentine's Day this year as well. Um,
Mm.
you have Fat Tuesday the day before the beginning, and the Carnival, Mardi Gras that happens prior to Fat Tuesday, right? If I have that right, it might happen at the other end. No, it happens right before.
Hmm.
Yep. And that's this whole sort of rites of reversal celebration, right? Where, um, yeah, it's a rite of reversal celebration. So you get to be whoever you want, right? You get to make fun of the people who are in power, right? Um, and the people in power get to pretend that they're something else than they actually are, right? So it's a big Catholic month, right? So we've moved now. I know I'm talking a lot about Catholicism, but it's intertwined with everything that we're talking about. And it impacts the way that we um, our secular celebrations, right? And the way that secularism feeds into capitalism and consumerism, right? So these things are all interconnected.
And it's important, y'all, because the history here, the reason Catholicism worked was because it came through and it subjugated and overtook the local rites and beliefs and
Hmm.
integrated them. So
Hmm.
you could feel like you were celebrating the old gods while you were lessen the candles instead.
Right, because Brigid was also a goddess of fire, right?
Mhm.
I mean, Brigid was a big, big, big figure. She is one of the daughters of she's one of the Dagda, right? The two, so I'm not going to get into the whole Celtic
We could
mythology
be
and
here for
history because,
years.
and frankly, I'm not educated well enough on it. So I'm not going to make a fool of myself and say things that aren't real. Right. So, anyways, this time of year for me has always been dedicated to breed. I want to talk just a minute about the way that we think about gods and goddesses. And I'm just going to throw this out there because I know that there are a lot of people who are like, yeah, I'm not into that. The way that one of the ways that I think about deity is that they are forces of nature. Okay. Big forces, big patterns in nature, right? And so if you think about fractals, that these are fractal iterations, right? So you can go all the way out to like the bigger than we can ever imagine, as big as the universe, the multiverse, right? And all the way down to the microcosmic level, that these patterns show up again and again and again from the macro to the micro level. Those recurring, reiterating patterns are something that humans recognized, understood, and gave name to and anthropomorphized. Okay. So you can think about breed as um, a daughter, a queen, a battle, the patroness of midwifery, of the forge, the flame, sacred wells, poets, bards, and it goes on and on and on and on, right? Like she's not, she's an all goddess, right? What I call an all goddess, meaning she oversees so much of and is the patroness of so many human activities.
And there are
But
analogs for her in a number of other religions and traditions.
absolutely. The all goddesses are in all cultures, if you go back far enough. But her particular focus is transformation. All right. Is the natural recurring pattern of transformation. So when we think about her as the goddess of the forge, right, where molten iron ore is heated up in flame, hammered out on the anvil, tempered in water. So you've taken this raw material and you've put it through a series of transformational processes to arrive at a sword or a shield or a crown or another hammer or nails or any other number of iron implements, right? That's a transformational process. And midwifery is a transformational process. You're bringing something that wasn't in existence into existence. And midwife goddesses patterns of nature are always located on both ends of a spectrum. So she is also on the other end in midwifing, or today we call it a death doula, right? But she's bringing people across that threshold into something else. So into the body and out of the body. Those are huge transformational moments, right? Um, the well, the spring, the water, also that's connected to the midwifery. It's connected. You have to have water at the forge. Water is life, right? So this is a life-giving force. Now, I've been to some of her springs in Ireland. I have her water on my altar, but I also have a well, like a deep ground well in my yard. And so, how is the water at that well more sacred than the water in my well?
That's a good question because transmutation matters here.
Yeah. And we're bringing this to a hyperlocal focus, right? That water feeds this household, keeps this body and my family alive, right? It's a mysterious sacred process happening out there. I don't know, right? How that water gets collected from the ground and filter, I know that there's like a filter system, right? I know when the filter needs to be changed because the water literally turns red with iron, right? So the transformation, the processes that which we use water in our sacred work, right? To cleanse ourselves, to transform a glass of water so that it has healing properties in it. Um,
I
she's
have an
also,
example here
yes,
for you.
yeah,
Locally, I live on top of the Ogallala Aquifer, which is one of the largest underground aquifers in the world. So I too have red minerally water. And I feel very, when I use that water, it ties me to not just that giant underground cavern, but also the native people who lived here before me, the Ogallala tribe, the
yes,
Omaha tribes, because that's completely interconnected into the water of life.
yes. And all water is sacred. All
Mhm.
water is sacred. So her sacred wells, this time of year where I live, we're having a very late winter freeze season. Like we got our first snow a couple days ago, and we're going to get lots and lots of rain tonight. So people who live down mountain from me are looking at flooding, right, in January. Um, but usually, and
Maybe.
not normal is the new normal, right?
Right.
So what stays the same though are these equinoxes, solstices, and cross quarter days. So in a climate that is changing, paying attention to what is happening on the wheel year is not just, it's for me, it's never just a spiritual endeavor, right? The spiritual endeavor, if it's not grounded in real life, then what are you doing? You're trying to get out of real life. You're trying to get
Mm.
out of the body. So centering in the body and in our lived experiences, usually at breed, and we're still 3 weeks away when we're recording this, right? The water is frozen, right? The running river, right? The little river that I love to go to and visit frequently, that's still running, but there's the edges of it are icy, right? The little pond up the hill for me, that's frozen, right? Part of what I do at this time of year is go visit water, right? So I visit my own well, right? And I tie ribbons around it and I give offerings there and I say, thank you for not running dry. Thank you for doing the filtering that you do so that I can drink safely. But thank you to water. And when I say blessing, what I want to say about it is like if we just feel grateful, if we just let ourselves like sink into the state of this water keeps me alive, right? And get sappy about it. Like, get like, "Ooh," because I do. I'm so grateful that this water source is here it's reliant upon some electricity, but that well is dug, right? So if electricity goes away, there's a way to get to that water, right?
And as things change, our water becomes increasingly important. So
Yes.
gratitude here feels essential to me.
It's essential in any indigenous way, right? And let's be real, when we're talking about pagan ways, the reason why we want to use words like Imbolc, right, is because that is the indigenous language for some of us that are here in the States that are removed from our indigenous roots. But here we are. And it is not appropriate for us to be using the indigenous languages of the people who were here before we occupied this land, right? But it is appropriate for us to give thanks to the water, the air, the fire, the land, the spirits that live here, to be grateful. So gratitude has no harm in it, right? Giving thanks is in itself a blessing, right? So blessing the well where I live, but also that pond in the woods, that the little fairy pond in the woods that I love to visit in the summer. But what making a trek up there and breaking through the ice to just wash with water, bring some home, pour it in my bathtub, wash my tools, whatever feels appropriate for me to do with that water. And also the little brook that I visit that's about 3 miles away, where the water is running and moving, collecting some of that as well. And usually if I'm always visiting on the first to that brook. And it's usually I'm washing my breed brat breed, which is a red cloth. Um, so I usually use that cloth on her altar, but I also have others that I use that bring to the river, and I just get them wet, bring them out, bring them home, hang them out overnight in the cold wind, and those are blessed by breed, and so they are for healing. So I might give one to someone who's in need of it. I might wrap one around me when I'm working on a writing project because she's the patroness of bards and poets. And so writers and speakers and tellers of story, podcasters, newscasters, right? Anyone who is sharing information out into the world in this day and age is a bard. You are accessing the bardic arts, which was those were the people who came to the village with the latest news. Well, now the news is all the time everywhere, right? Even if it's the news of what you ate for breakfast that morning. So, wrapping myself in one of those if I'm sitting down to do a writing project, wiping down my writing implements, right? I have some very nice pens, and so I'll just wash those off in the water that I bring. Make sure that the ink cartridges are full and they're not going to run out anytime soon. So these are just little things that I do, right? But really, I'm not prescribing this to anyone, right? I want you to figure out like what makes sense for you to do this time of year, right? For me, it is not going out to the barn and milking sheep, right?
There
Um,
are no sheep to be found here either. I live in the land of beef.
yeah, and here we don't have a lot of beef cows, right? We have milking cows here. Um, but there's not a lot of beef being raised in the Northeast, right? And what is being raised here is, sorry, vegans. It's beautiful, well treated, like, that cow came from right over the hill from me, right? Um, but it's not in abundance. It's not like living in the Midwest
Hmm.
where where it's cattle country.
Fields of beef.
No, I mean, it's so rare here that when we see a cow in a field, we all go, "Moo."
See, there are advantages too, because you don't have to deal with that smell either, which like permeates everything.
Yeah,
So,
yep. Let's see. Where are we here? So, breed as a transformational um, force of nature, right? So, if you don't want to work with her, that's okay. Work with the transformational nature of this time. We are where I live, it's really the depth of winter um, in February, right? People want to come visit me, and I say, don't even try to get a plane here or home in February. You just learn like the plane won't go, right? The plane won't go. It'll be stuck in a snowstorm. You'll spend 2 days in Chicago or whatever. Um, but it's still a transitional time, right? What this point on the wheel says is we're between now, right? The next point on the wheel is the beginning of spring. Again, where I live, it doesn't feel like spring here. Like, it's coming, right? You might be able to get a little sense of, I think I can feel that sunlight on my skin. But it's not time to put things in the ground because the ground is still frozen. And,
mm-mm.
we may have frost in May, right? Um, but this moment of transition. So we're coming out of winter solstice, that sleepy, dreamy, restful, quiet, low light, setting intentions time, right? Now is the time to start instituting what you were dreaming about between Samhain and winter solstice. Those seasons, not the days, the seasons, right? So, like I said last time, there's just this moment where you sort of rub your eyes, right? Sort of wake up from hibernation, and part of you wants to, right? Like, I'm making this movement of now I have to go do, right? What are the steps that I need to take to bring those intentions, affirmations, goals um, into fruition, to manifestation? So this is the spark, right, from the forge, right? The spark of inspiration, the spark of new beginnings that comes with just that little bit of extra light, even if you can't feel it yet, that few minutes of daylight that we've gained, right, gives us a little more energy to start working, to start making movement in the direction that we want to move. Mhm.
And what do we do with that? What do we do with the desire to plant while the ground is still frozen hard?
Right. Well, first of all, most people are not planting. Okay. I plant. I'll start my seeds after the spring equinox. Okay. So, planting seeds in the earth, if it's time to do that where you are, then you'll do that. You'll be like, I need to put my seeds in. But the planting is also, what am I doing with my time? What am I building? What am I creating? What am I generating? What am I sharing? right? And this is the moment where the thinking about it, right? Because we can have a million great ideas. Thinking about it turns toward implementation, right? Or beginning to make the thing happen, to do the thing rather than thinking about the thing, doing the thing. But know that it's still seeds, right? It's still seeds. It's still time to like gather your implements, right? So if you were planting, then you're gathering seed trays and the special seed soil and your seeds, figuring out where you're going to put that in the house because it can't be outside yet. So if my project is I'm working on writing, then I'm going to gather my notebooks. I'm going to gather my pens. I'm going to start jotting down the ideas that I've been dreaming about. Or the way that I work is while I'm dreaming, I'm jotting down ideas. Well, I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at that. I'm going to start pulling outlines together, right? So how does that translate to whatever it is that you create, right? And I want to just say, like, we're all creators. It's human nature to be creative, to be curious, and to be creative. If you give a little kid a, a bucket and a shovel and you take them to the beach, they are going to work all day. We call it play when they're that age, right? But that's what creativity is, right? It's working at play, playing at work. So we're all creative, whether you create for a living or you create for a hobby or you create beautiful meals or you create beautiful spaces to live in or you create safe spaces for community to gather or you create situations where people can get together and just laugh and have a good time. We are, there's work that goes into that, but we don't call it work because that's unpaid labor, right? Um, but it's still creative. So this is also a time of year, if you think that you're not creative, to start paying attention. Like pick up that lens I just gave you and start looking through it at what you do in your life that you're like, oh, I just do that. I'm not creative. I don't have any artistic ability. I don't blah, 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 blah. No, you do. You just aren't, you're not taking credit in that particular way for it. So this is a time of year, I think, that is for paying attention, right? For me, I visit water. I do some things that are semi traditional, but not really. um, in honor of breed, in honor of that pattern of creativity, inspiration, transformation, right? If I were to, siphon down all the things that we said breed was the patroness of creativity, inspiration, transformation, right? And all of those things can involve danger. Transformation, we talked about last time, is change. We are afraid of it. We want things to stay the same. We don't want any surprises. Please, no more new information unless we're not. Like, I'm a transformation junkie, right? Like, I'm like, what's happening? What's new? How do I integrate that information? How does that impact my life? What changes do I need to make? But that's me. Most people, I think, are a little hesitant, a little afraid of change because if you tip the apple cart, everything might collapse. but breed is a transformational energy. And what I know to be true about these natural forces is we can change purposefully. We can decide, okay,
Or
I
we can be changed.
or the circumstances will change, right? And so when I say that I'm a transformation junkie, maybe I'm a control freak, right? Maybe I can see it coming, and
Mhm.
I have my ear, right, sort of open to what's coming, so that I can prepare, so that I'm not knocked way off balance when the change comes. And that goes for small, um, personal transformation, but also on a really big scale, right? It's why I live at a place where there's a well and land to plant on. Yeah. So I think you asked me, what can people do? And I think I hope that people will visit water and do that activity. In the workbook, I suggest that you go find the source of your water, the water that comes into your house. Where does that come from? And go visit that big water if it comes from a reservoir. Now, I know that there are places in the country where someone was telling me yesterday that from Canada, that the water that they have in Canada is the water that some people in the States are getting in their faucet, right? So it might not be possible for you to go visit the big water where your water is piped in from, but you can bless the water coming out of your faucet. You can
Mhm.
bless the pipes that are in your home that carry the water. And this is like super pagan, right? Like, I'm going to bless these pipes. Thank you for being good. Thank you for being whole. Please continue to do your job, right? So that the water comes where it's supposed to, not where it's not supposed to, right? Um, this is modern paganism.
I bless my water heater on this day every
Yes.
year
Yeah.
because it's water and fire, and it seems like a good time to just say, hey, no exploding water heater, thanks.
Yeah. The little pilot light in your furnace. Bless that. That is that if that goes out, you don't have heat in your house, right? So if you want, you can go and build a fire outside. If you have one, you can build a fire in your hearth or your wood stove or your pellet stove or what have you. But like, bless all of the sparks of fire. And that means your electrical wiring, right? That means the spark plugs in your car. Right? That means the sparks between neuron and synapse in the body,
Hmm.
because we are water, we are fire, we are earth, we are air. And so bless the self as well. Like, keep all of those synapses firing. Thank you that, this much of my brain still is working at the age that I am.
I'll say too, February is an incredible time to get a membership to an area gym because all of the New Year's resolution junkies will have washed out already.
Already? Yeah, it's been so long since I've done that. Yep. Um, yeah. What else? For those of us who consider ourselves, poets, bards, writers, speakers, carriers of information, um, I think it's great just to like light a candle to that inspiration that comes in. I mean, I've literally I wrote a book that Breed was like, sit down and write. And I was like, I'm sitting down and writing. And, like it poured from me. Right. So if you're a writer, if you're a creator, um, this is a really good time to like light a candle, get yourself a bunch of red candles. Valentine's coming, so they're already in the stores. They were in the stores December 23rd. Like they were putting out Valentine's stuff. So get yourself some red candles and just light a candle. And again, this doesn't have to be prayer to a deity. This can be acknowledgement of a natural pattern that is particularly strong this time of year, and humans have always known it. So tap into that. The other thing on a really deeply personal level is that question about where am I creating? Where am I transforming? Where am I blocking transformation? Where am I welcoming it? What in me needs healing, right? That water piece is about healing. The wells that people visit by the thousands every year, they go there for healing, right? They leave their ribbons tied on the trees and their petitions for healing there, right? So maybe when you pour yourself a glass of water at home, that you just ask that the water help you heal, right? And make your doctor's appointments, make your naturopath's appointments, make your acupuncture appointments, make your massage therapy appointments, make your consultations with your herbalist. However you get your health care, this is a good time of year to sort of be like, I need to get all of those appointments in order. I need to talk to someone about these things that have crept up while I was, being down in the dreamy realms for the last season.
We talked about it a little bit in the first episode, but food is something that's going to come up again and again and again. What are some of the traditional meals or things that you're currently making and consuming at this time of year?
This time of year, I want spicy food. Yep. So yesterday I roasted a chicken in a really beautiful curry sauce. So I'm wanting a lot of that kind of spice because it warms the body, right? I don't like Indian food that is so spicy on the tongue that I can't breathe, but I want those particular spices working in my body because they are warming, right? And it's cold. So I like to make curried things this time of year, not very Eurocentric traditional, right? But that's what I'm looking for. I'm still really looking for things that are warming. I'm still doing a lot of soups, but the soups tend to be more curry flavor, right? That spice palette is what I'm wanting. I'm wanting like less heavy things, like less heavy than I wanted at winter solstice, but I'm not ready for a salad.
No, it's not time yet.
It is not salad. Like I don't want cold food in the cold winter. So grilled cheese sandwiches, with a slightly curried roasted tomato soup is a thing. And a lot of, those root vegetables that I've never been a fan of just eating butternut squash. But if I roast it and run it with the immersion blender with the right spices, I'll eat it as soup. But I'm not going to eat, if you put a dollop of that on my plate, I'm going to like go back to some childhood thing, right? Of like, eat that. And you're like,
Oh, I will, though.
Yeah. I'll make soup out of anything. I have an immersion blender now. It's like everything can become soup.
Everything can become soup with an
Yes.
immersion blender. I have a very expensive blender and I use it far less than I use my $20 stick immersion blender.
Absolutely, because you don't have to remember we used to have to take the stuff out of the pan and put it in the blender and then and now it's just like it's done. It's my favorite kitchen
Mhm.
tool right now. Yep. Um, what else? I don't know what else people are doing this time of year for meals. I only know what I'm doing. Like, and we only have sort of the overculture, consumer culture telling us what we should want, right? Which is like a seafood or steak dinner at a nice restaurant on Valentine's Day. Or if you're in New Orleans, right? That there's all of the traditional foods that you would have in New Orleans during Mardi Gras, but that's all also all year round down in New Orleans,
Mhm.
right? But king cake is a thing.
Pay attention to your cultural foods here, I think.
Hmm.
What your ancestors might have eaten. Pay attention, I think, to what's always a good hint for me is when I read about food and I go, "Oh yes, that is something."
Hmm.
Cozy novels are great this time of year because they often talk about food.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what would we be eating? So at this point, right? You would be eating
Mhm.
salted meats. You'd be eating um, vegetables maybe cured with vinegar, right? I'm going back to my ancestral roots, right, with the sauerkrauts and the sours.
Maybe you learn kimchi this season.
Yeah, that sour stuff. I know it's like ancestral for me, but I'm like, no, thank you.
I am I am mostly Roman, so I would have been eating garum, which is fermented fish paste around this time of
Hmm.
year.
Hmm. Yep.
So I feel ya. I'm not eating fermented fish paste, although you can cook with it and I don't object. But I
The
do eat
cooking with it is really good. Just like eating it out of no.
no,
But yeah, using a little of that in your red sauce. Yeah.
I really like tinned fish for myself personally this time of year. I eat a lot of anchovies, sardines, those kinds of. I do like a good herring.
Mhm. Yep. So the
Smelts.
small salty fishes.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yep.
Find those things in your diet, in your ancestral diet, and you'll have some clues as to what you should be eating this time of year. If
Yeah,
you don't know and you want to experiment, now's the
mhm.
time.
Yeah. I have a friend who did I don't remember the name of the diet, but she went, like, completely sort of based upon her ancestry, that's the diet that she went on, and her whole body shape changed because that's what her cells wanted. I wanna eat the whole world, right? So I'm like, we're eating, New Orleans style rice and beans one day and Indian food the next day and Mediterranean food the next day because I love to cook and I'm not a fan of German food.
I can, I mean, understand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Worse and crowd are perhaps not for everyone.
Yeah. No, when I go to Germany to visit my friend, we usually go to an Italian restaurant or we go for a doner. Um um sometimes we'll go to this place that is just hysterical, right? It's like the whole building is full of like stuffed animals, right? Like stuffed boar and stuff. And then that's what they serve. And I'm just, it's a lot. It's a lot, but you know, it's good schnitzel.
And
Yeah.
I think that's part of the joy of this season for me is that it's less heavy, and so I am more inclined to play and explore and make new foods and try new things.
Yep. Yep. What else did I want to make sure?
You wanted to talk about the overculture's impact on this time of year. Work, taxes, all those
Yes.
things are coming.
Yes, they are. So the overculture is asking us to, if you get a tax refund, right? You are you're waiting for those forms to come so that you can quickly fill out your taxes and get your refund as soon as possible. If you pay taxes or you own a business and you have a lot of your taxes are more complicated than that, um, I have it actually on my list of things to do this week is to start that file, right? Start like collecting pieces of paper that I will have to hand to my tax person in a month or so. Um,
So we
so
can file for an extension because that's what happens here.
uh-huh. Yeah. Um, the other thing is it's Valentine's Day, right? So again, this is another sort of Christian saint martyr, who is now the patron saint of lovers. I do remember some story like in third grade from the nuns about some love letter being passed into the dungeon where he was. I don't know how they made that connection, but there was some connection about letters. Um, so giving Valentines, right? If you're a parent, you've got, I don't know if their kids are still doing that. Um, I'm sure in some places it's still a really big thing, to get all of those Valentine's little cards for everybody in your kids' classes and making cookies and cupcakes and candies and all of that. Um, what else is happening this time of year? That's it. I mean, it's ski season where I live. Um, and I just can't think of, I just know that like I said, on December 23rd, when I was in the store, I've never seen this before. So pretty soon they're just going to have all of the holidays available at all of the stores at all of the times. This is what I'm thinking, right? So if you're a Christmas freak, you can get all of your Christmas ornaments all year round. But they were already putting out Valentine's Day gear, all of the dish towels with hearts on them and the mugs with hearts on them and all of the, so that was happening on winter solstice, right before Christmas. So that seems to be like the big push right now. And of course, um, it will only be a few more weeks before you can't buy a winter coat, even though it's the dead of winter here. You will not find one in the store because they are selling you a,
Swimsuits.
a swimsuit and flip flops that you can't wear for another 5 months. Um, this is Chris, winter vacation, right? For kids coming up around the 20th of February. And I only know that because one of my kids' birthday is in that week where the kids are home from school. So you're planning for that as well. Who's going to take care of your kids? Are you taking time off? Is there daycare available? How much is that going to cost? Blah 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 blah. Right? It's a huge ordeal when you're working, right? And suddenly your kids have a week off from school. Um, I could never figure out what this break was about. um, the April one is great, but I could never figure out why we were having a break at this particular um, juncture in the school year. But maybe people who live in a different climate than I do, maybe they know. Maybe this is planting week if you live in the South, right? And so the school would have given families time to have their children home with them to help them get the fields planted. I'm assuming it's a big leap.
It is, but better than any other school. I don't understand it.
Yeah. Well, in the South, the kids, they get out of school earlier, though, too. Like school ended in May, not in the middle of June, because of the heat, but also because of agriculture. And they would start earlier. Like here, we never start school till after Labor Day weekend. But in the South, they would start in late August. So there's something there about climate, I'm sure. But yeah, so if the culture isn't demanding, right? Like the last Sabbath, right? Everybody's like, I gotta have a tree and I gotta have presents. I gotta wrap the presents. I have to put out a feast. I have to travel. If the culture isn't demanding a lot of us this time of year, then you can use this time of year. You have more capacity right now to take back your time, to take time for your creative endeavors, your transformational work, right? So this is an easier time of year to hear that than it was the last time we met 3 days, like right smack in the middle of all of that overculture, consumerist, capitalist pressure that happens to us at the end of the year, of the end of that Gregorian year.
And so we transition then from this season of light and personal growth into the next one. We have another quarter. So
Yeah.
this would be the equinox, and we'll
Mhm.
talk about names for that episode the next time. But
Yes.
what can we expect to have starting for that one?
Well, again, at some point, right? So right now we're talking about breed in bulk Candlemas as we are coming toward it, right? Last time we came right on the day, but as we're coming toward it, so we're preparing you and asking you to like tune in. Has that winter solstice season shifted where you are and internally, right, toward this climb toward breed on February 1st? And so the energy is really high around these themes for a while, few days to a week, and then it starts to taper down, right? So I'm not like in the camera, but it starts to taper down, and then there'll come this point when you're like, now I really have to get busy, right? So there's something here about the dream time, the ignition time, right? Like we're igniting a flame, right? We're lighting the flame. We're saying, this is what I'm going to be doing. This is the energy I'm building. This is the book I'm writing. This is the project I'm working on. This is the goal I'm setting. And we set the things up for that. And then by time spring equinox comes, we're in it. We're doing it. Right? So it's a more of a manifestation time. So if winter solstice is the dreaming season, right? This is the igniting those dreams, right? Starting to put some heat under them and like, what do I need to do to actually create this thing? And by next time, we will be in action. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah. So it becomes a busier time, right?
Mhm.
We're leaving the dreaming. Yeah.
My friend, this has been fabulous.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure that people know that along with these podcasts, I'm doing a meditation for each of these Sabbats. So this meditation, I keep moving out of camera, sorry. So this meditation will really have to do with these forces of transformation, of creativity, of healing, of regenerating, so that we have the energy to create, right? So it's really a beautiful meditation. I mentioned earlier, doing a ritual back when I was 27. So I'm 32 years older than that now. And really still working with those themes and having refined how to present that in a way that isn't jarring, but really beautifully welcoming, and bring your ideas for how and what you want to transform to that meditation. And again, I think it's important to reiterate that the meditations are for this Sabbath, for the season. But if you need this kind of transformation, healing, and inspiration in August, use them. It's not like verboten, right? Like, oh, that's for breed. I can't. These energies are always available to us. These fractal iterations of a universal pattern are always available to us. And so the meditations are available for your use, not just on the day, right? We're looking at these patterns throughout the year. And if something's up for you in August where you need to jumpstart something because we live in capitalism, right? Like the energy of nature might be doing something else then, but you still need to like get inspired, get motivated, get the healing that you need so that you can take forward moving steps. Use the meditation then. Same for the Dreamtime one for winter solstice. So meditations are coming as a package with a workbook. The workbook touches on all of the themes that we touched on today, but instead of Breyer asking me the question, I'm asking you the question. What's happening for you this time of year? What kinds of foods do you want? How are you feeling within yourself? What are you feeling passionate or motivated about? Where is your water? Right? And this time I'm also including some activities that people can do during this season to remember that water is life, and to give thanks to fire, and to ask for the healing that we need, and to um, gather our inspiration so that we can create what it is that we're here to create. So that's a little package that's available. Also, if you ever want to talk to me about these themes or any other magical pagan themes, or any life themes, because I'm a whole life priestess. You can hear that just in this talk, right? We went from who are the gods to like bless the little pilot light in your furnace to I'm kind of afraid of the word transformation, right? So coffee dates are a thing. You can go to my website and book a coffee date with me, and that's a 15, a 45, or a 90-minute session. You come with your topic, your question, and we go for the allotted amount of time. People find those really helpful. They're kind of like a lightning flash session with me. So be prepared because we'll go really fast. But it's a really nice way to sort of get the feedback that you want without making a huge commitment. But if you want to make a huge commitment, I also do something called Big Crone Energy Sessions. And those are a 6, 9, or 12-month commitment to working with me over time. And again, I'm a whole life priestess. So there's very little that you're going to bring to me that I haven't dealt with myself in the communities that I've built, or students and clients that I've worked with over my long life. So,
And we will link to Karina's website and her sessions in the show notes. If you are a paid subscriber to the Neurodiversity Media Network, you will get access to the meditations and the workbooks for free. That
yes.
will come in the email that we send out with this episode. All right, y'all. Karina, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And we will see you all again next time for the equinox. Have an